Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Joe Two and Love. Back again on Thursdays, normal time AEW review for June 30th, 2021. The final AEW Dynamite before AEW starts touring again. And the first AEW Dynamite back on Wednesdays after a month of preempted episodes of Dynamite from Fridays and Saturdays. Now back, while it did serve a purpose and was enjoyable for certain aspects, for Friday and Saturday being panned out with a bunch of other shows, for me, it worked to an extent, but being back now, normal time, on Thursdays, it's better again for AEW on Wednesdays. Was a good show and a good send off for AEW in the Daily's Place era. And for now, until AEW comes back to Daily's Place, but nonetheless, was a good show, highlighted by the main event, anticipated main event between MJF and Sammy Guevara. And got a bunch to go over as well on the podcast and episode today, but thank you for joining me today. If you're new and if you like the episode, click that like button, as well as you want to see more reviews and sports review topics, click the subscribe as well. Nonetheless, let's get into the overall review of Dynamite, shall we? So, the show started off with, again, a good opener, which you love to see. Eddie Kingston and Pentagon, or Penta El Zero. Of course, they still call him Pentagon because that's just easier for me to call him. I'm sure many of them do. Against the Young Bucks. This was a tag title eliminator match where if Kingston and Penta they beat the Bucks, they will get a future AEW tag team title shot. And it was stunning, but nonetheless, it was a good match. So now, first, before I get into the match, oh jeez, that the Young Bucks, they came out wearing this looked ridiculous. These goatees. Uh, I mean, Matt came out with this thick mustache. Nick, he came out with the whole mustache and goatee. It was just very odd looking. And Tony Schiavone, oh man, Tony Schiavone, he said they looked like quote unquote porn stars. Oh my god. Oh, Tony Schiavone is hilarious. But nonetheless, this match was good. Uh, Getting into the match was a diving foot stomp to Matt Jackson's uh, by Penta for a near fall. Then the Young Bucks, they fired back with some corner combo combination, cannonball, Enziguri on Pentagon. They went for more bang for your buck. but was countered by a Kingston, a nice superplex, and then a hot tag to Penta. Penta ran wild, uh, hit a almost like a bizarre looking code red on for near fall. Then and then also Chris Jericho, he was on commentary for the majority of the show outside of what happened in the main event. But it was just hilarious hearing him on commentary again. I will say. So Penta and Kingston, they fired back with a very good. So Nick Jackson, he was propped up in the corner. Beautiful super kick by Penta. Release German by Kingston, followed with a backstabber by Penta. And then, so Kingston, he was taken out for a little bit with a crossbody by Matt Jackson on the outside on the ramp. Then, with the referee view obstructed by Nick, he had a low blow on Penta. Then they went for the Lucha Brothers finishing move, the assisted package pile driver by the Bucks for a nice near fall. And then Cutler misfire. He was on the outside. Brandon Cutler. He sprayed the cold spray into Matt Jackson's eyes when the Good Brothers came out. So some misfire there. Then Penta with a beautiful tope con hero on the outside, taking out the Good Brothers. Then Penta and Kingston, they won with a Fear Factor super kick combination. 1, 2, 3. Penta and Kingston, they beat the tag team champions, the Young Bucks, and it was announced that next week they will face for the tag team championships. Now, I love Eddie Kingston, and we get that they're feuding. We know he's over. We hear from the crowd, and obviously they're still furthering this feud with Eddie Kingston and the Young Bucks with what they did to Moxley at Double or Nothing. And Ray Phoenix is still with an injury that he suffered at a show in Mexico, I believe. So now, also, I'm a little against it because, it's the tag team champions losing on TV in a non-title match. And now Kingston and Penta, they get a shot next week. It is WWE type crap, but I will say though that it's AEW, and it's not like we see this nearly every month. But at least that we see it once in a while, and the Bucks, we know they've been built up for. They've won for over a year, basically. So I get it. I don't see Penta and Kingston winning the titles. They're not really a team. So obviously the Bucks will win next week or retain. But I am okay with it knowing that it's AEW and considering we don't see this pretty much every month for a pay-per-view. So next we got Jungle Boy and Christian Cage. Backstage, they were talking about with Jungle Boy's match on Saturday night against Kenny Omega. Uh, Christian talked about how Jungle Boy will be a AEW champion in the future. Then Marco Stunt and Luchasaurus they came in. And Luchasaurus praised Christian, thanking him for having his back while he's been gone. So Luchasaurus said dinosaurs are loyal and he has his back as well. So Christian Cage talked about how his mom said that he's part pterodactyl, something like that. And then so they talked, and that was a little segment finished. It's no problem that Christian Cage turns on Jungle Boy after this Matt Hardy feud is over, but I like the little interaction, so nonetheless, with Christian, and now he's getting the um, guidance, or not guidance, the backing of Jurassic Express as well. So that's nice. So then we had Ethan Page. He came out with Scorpio Sky. They were interviewed by Tony Schiavone. Um, Ethan Page described his history with Darby Allin. Talked about the times he's injured Darby. Now that's enough. That's not enough. Um, Previewing their coffin match. And then a video package played on the big screen. It was a casual Darby Allin, eerie black and white vignette. It showed a coffin being propped up without the cardboarding or placement. It was just like the sticks that were holding it together. And Darby had a flamethrower and he set it on fire. So then next, screen blacks out, and then we see Sting come out on the stage. He's next to a coffin that doesn't have an opening or a top. It just has a cloth or a blanket on top of it. So he unveils this blanket, and Darby, he pops up. They attack Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky. And referees and officials, they separate them. And Ethan Page, he was pissed. He retreated. He said the match is off for next week, that Darby knows he can't beat him at 100%. So then he says that he wants it in writing, that Darby Allin won't touch him the week before the pay-per-view. or week before the match. And he says that maybe if he's a good boy, that they can do the match at Fyter Fest. So, well, prolonging of the match, I mean, I get it with all the matches that they're placing on for next week's show. You want to give this match enough time. So, and it gives a little more intrigue to Fyter Fest. Although I want this feud to be over, it's an exciting match, and to be the first match besides Nyla Rose versus Thunder Rosa, or excuse me, Nyla Rose versus Britt Baker. This is an interesting match for Fyter Fest, so I'm okay with it. So then we had Jungle Boy versus Jack Evans. They talked about how if Jungle Boy wins, he would be the first to 50 wins in AEW, the first person to 50 wins in AEW. Considering he's with Anna Jay, I would say that's worth more than 50 wins. Just me saying. But nonetheless, good for Jungle Boy. And this match, it was okay. I mean, that song for Jungle Boy, it just shows that he's really over with the crowd. And I mean, but this match was okay. We know Jericho talked about on commentary that Jack Evans has built up more muscle over the last few months. He does look a bit bigger, I'll say that. Jack Evans does. We know he's talented. But Jungle Boy winning with the snare trap. Jack Evans taps. Good for Jungle Boy. And yeah, it gives Jungle Boy another win on Dynamite after a rebound of that really good match with Kenny Omega. And he gets to 50 wins in AEW. So, MJF, he had promo backstage. He talked about how Chris Jericho, he's been holding him down, and that next week that he'll have these stipulations that he knows Chris Jericho won't do, but the stipulations he'll pull out for Jericho in order for Jericho to get one more match with MJF. And if MJF beats Jericho, Jericho has to leave him alone. So there's that. And they announced that in the main event, there will be a standoff or face-to-face next week. Road Rager in Miami. MJF Jericho, and MJF will lay out the stipulations for Chris Jericho, and I imagine that with the leading up, we're going to get this match at All Out. I think that's pretty safe to say. And I'm all for it. The question is, though, with the stipulations MJF gave to Cody in order for Cody to have a match with him at Revolution last year, with the cage match with Wardlow, he couldn't touch Max, and the lashes that he took from MJF. I'm not. They probably won't be as brutal as those stipulations were, but interesting to think about what stipulations will MJF have for Jericho prior to their match, for which I'm assuming is again probably going to be at All Out. So next we had Andrade Del Idolo. I kind of expect this from hearing from last week or for Sunday to review. But Andrade Del Idolo, he was backstage. He was talking with Alex Abrahantes, and he talked about being interrupted by Matt Sydal, and that next week he challenges Matt Sydal, or he called him Matt something, to a match, his debut match in AEW next week in Miami. And that's just great. Andrade versus Matt Sydal in front of that Miami crowd. Their first show back on the road. Couldn't do it any better. So, should be an interesting match for next week, which I'm looking forward to. So then Kenny Omega, the busy man, the AEW Impact and AAA Mega World Champion. Kenny Omega, he was interviewed by Tony Schiavone, and Kenny Omega, they talked about maybe he's using the same razor that the Young Bucks are doing, because he came out with some weird sideburns and the mustache over with the goatee cut out. Kind of what Triple H used to do a number of years ago, but nonetheless, strange but okay look for Kenny Omega. I mean, he's a currently the company world champion, so he can do what he wants. So he was interviewed by Tony Schiavone. He joked how earlier Tony Schiavone asked him, well, how can he keep up this pace? How can he still do it? What so motivates him being a 3-company world champion? And Schiavone was like, I didn't ask you that. And he said, well, sure you did. So Omega ran down, talked about how he's beating everybody. He's got no challengers left. And he said that perhaps he needs to take some time off from AEW. But he said, don't worry, that he'll probably see him. They'll probably see him defending another championship somewhere else. So then all of a sudden, the Dark Order's music hit, and the Dark Order came out minus Hangman and Adam Page. So Evil Uno, he talked to Kenny, describing that, did you say you have no challengers left? And this is when the circuits in everybody's mind, they started to turn. And it's like, okay, it's gonna happen. So then Omega was like, if you're talking about the person I think you're talking about or hinting to, I don't think he has guts to face me for the world championship. And Omega also iterated that I don't think he has what it takes to be a world champion. Hinting Hangman Adam Page. This was good, and Omega said, "This when I bid you adieu, goodbye, and good night." Bang. So there was that. Uh, it's gonna happen. Hangman versus Kenny Omega is gonna happen, and it seems like it's gonna happen at All Out. Omega versus Hangman, and I'm all for it. I mean, Kenny. Well, first of all, when you look at All Out, as I think I've mentioned before, it's kind of the perfect pay per view for this match. The reason being is 2 years for 2 years on All Out, both Kenny Omega and Hangman Page have not won a match at All Out. So there's one. Two, last year, Kenny Omega and Hangman Page both lost their tag team titles to FTR last year at All Out. So the history is there, All Out. This time, though, for Kenny, who we know is a busy man this summer, he's going to face Sammy Callahan at Slammiversary for the Impact World Championship. He's going to face Andrade for the AAA Mega World Championship. And at All Out, he'll be defending the AEW World Championship against Hangman Adam Page. I mean, just wow. Just whoa. It's going to be an exciting match, and I'm all for it. So then we have Brian Pillman Jr. challenging Miro for the TNT Championship. Brian Pillman Jr., he cut a promo prior to the match talking about how Miro's the big bad bully of AEW, God's favorite champion, as he iterates. But seems like he has a Messiah complex, but really he's just a big bad bully and a bitch in AEW. So we get to the match, and it was okay. Miro also must say that his new theme music is interesting. I'm not sure if it's better than the previous theme music, but it's interesting. I will say that. It makes him feel more devious and more intimidating. So Pillman had some offense in this match. Uh, he knocked Miro off the apron, hit a baseball slide, took it to Miro on the outside, hit a diving clothesline, but that was pretty much it. He had some thrust kicks, but then Miro caught him with a Machka kick of his own and walked on the game over. And Brian Pillman passed out, or Junior passed out for the win. Miro retains. A solid match. Good showing, though, for Brian Pillman Jr. And he keeps improving. He's becoming one of the better promos of AEW. And it's good to see. So then we got to the low point of the show. Nyla Rose and Vicky Guerrero versus Rebel and Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. Now, this match, obviously we know that Nyla Rose, she's going to challenge Britt Baker for the Women's Championship at Fyter Fest, but this is kind of the get-to match, the build-up, but this match could have totally been avoided, in my view, and with what happened after the match, it was definitely could have been done without the match, and just not much here. Lockjaw by Britt Baker. She and Rebel win. Vicky taps. Afterwards, Nyla Rose, she hit powerbomb on Britt Baker and then powerbombed her through a table on the outside off the apron with Nyla Rose standing tall. I mean, look, I like Nyla Rose. She's a credible contender in the women's division, but as far as intrigue for this match, it's just not there. And considering this is how Britt Baker is starting her championship reign, it's not as good as we kind of expected. But I guess it did what it needed to do. So then we had Santana Ortiz and Jake Hager backstage. They were previewing their match for next week, 6-man tag for Road Rager. It's going to be Jake Hager and Santana Ortiz of the Inner Circle versus Wardlow and FTR. Very interesting match for next week. For Inner Circle versus Pinnacle. I am itching to see Santana Ortiz versus FTR, but I'm guessing I'm curious how they'll hold off to land, but I imagine we're going to see it all out. And I think that's the appropriate place to have it. So then we get to the main event. MJF vs Sammy Guevara. Grudge match. I mean, first off, before I get into the match, I saw the video package on YouTube that AEW uploaded for Road to Dynamite previewing this match, and it was excellent. It was as good as it could be, documenting their history, how they feel about each other. It just shows you the future is bright, really bright in AEW. Then getting to this match, very, very good. I mean, coming off on Saturday night with the Omega Jungle Boy match to this match, couldn't ask any better, I will say. Now, there was one spot that was scary in this match, and I'm sure people know what I'm talking about. But other than that spot, this match was great. Very good. So originally they came out and it was a stalemate, chain wrestling, exchange of pins, and then once the match started to open up, it just couldn't ask any better. So MJF, or excuse me, Sammy Guevara, he had a springboard cutter for near fall. They were on the outside, and Sammy Guevara's leg, it bounced off the barricade. Kind of brutal as going to the ring. So then coming back was a beautiful Spanish fly off the middle rope by Sammy Guevara. Then a tornado dive on the outside. And then a beautiful springboard destroyer by Sammy Guevara, which Jericho called a Cuban destroyer. Nonetheless, was a good spot for it to count. And then MJF, he was on the outside near the timekeeper's table. He grabbed a bottle of water to kind of wake himself up. And then he grabbed a chair. And then Guevara hit a baseball slide into the chair, which hit MJF in the face. And then, arguably the best spot of the match, which just took this match kind of up a notch above, I would say. So, MJF, he was on the outskirts of the barricade into the crowd. And Sammy Guevara, he was on the top rope in the ring. Hit a beautiful senton from the top rope into the crowd onto MJF. A spot I'm sure RVD and many high flyers would would love. That was a great and scary spot. So Sammy Guevara, he rolled MJF in the middle in the ring, went for a 630, but Sammy was rolled on the top rope, and then that spot I mentioned, which I'm sure many people, my jaw was dropped when I saw the spot, because I was like, oh geez. And then I'm sure many cringed, and at the spot, MJF gone to the top rope and hit a middle rope tombstone pile driver off the middle rope. And then that wasn't bad enough. MJF, you could see, was grabbing at his knee right after the for a near fall. And I think the injury, I'm not sure if MJF was really injured, but it definitely added to the match. Because after MJF tried to follow up on Guevara, but his knee gave out. So then, after Sammy tried to roll up MJF for the win, but couldn't do it. So Guevara hit the GTH, a beautiful GTH, and had MJF pinned, but MJF's foot was on the rope for it to count. And then, so then Sammy went for the 630. MJF tried to beg it off for another close 2 count. Everyone was standing, and rightly so, in the crowd. So next thing, Wardlow, he came out. Shawn Spears. Wardlow, he attacked Chris Jericho. They were fighting on right in front of the crowd, that area that's propped up near the stage. So they were fighting there, and Wardlow, he got the referee's attention. He threw Jericho off the little stage area to the ringside, in which Jericho was underneath the timekeeper's table. And then while the referee was distracted, Shawn Spears, with a brutal chair shot to the head, knocks out Sammy, and Shawn Spears hides like nothing happened. MJF drapes his arm over Sammy. 1, 2, 3. MJF gets over on Sammy Guevara. And what a heck of a match. What a heck of a match to end Dynamite and end the Daily's Place era of AEW. Throughout the pandemic, Daily's Place has been the home of AEW. And next week, AEW is back on the road. And very good to see. It'll be very good to see. 15 months of AEW really without in Daily's Place, and now back in. And then afterwards, they showed the best moments of AEW in Daily's Place over the pandemic era, and tribute to Daily's Place, and get you a little emotional because you saw Roy Lee. And if there's one person you wish could have been in a live crowd for AEW, Brody Lee, but not be forgotten, definitely. And then, JR. he says to end, he says there's nothing like WWE Dynamite off the air. I mean, at first because I was so invested in the video package and Dave's Place, at first I heard it and I was like, what? JR really said that? But look at JR, you know, it is what it is. But nonetheless, that's a review for you guys. I hope you guys enjoy it. I know I did too. The final AEW Dynamite for Dave's Place for a while. Sure, they'll be back, but thank you for Dave's Place for continuing to be the home of AEW throughout the pandemic. Next week, they're back on the road in Miami. So, getting through the pandemic era of AEW, next week, back on the road. So, nonetheless, if you guys enjoyed this video, like and subscribe if you want to see more. Hope you're all being safe today. Have a good day. Be safe. Peace.